Welcome back. Welcome to Your Sober Now What?
We're so excited you're here. This is episode 1.
Episode 1. Hi, Tamar.
Hi, Lane. How are you?
It's a great day. It's a great
It,
day to be sober.
it is a great day to be sober. Do you have your book with
I
you?
have the book.
I have my book with me too. So if you're listening, have you got your copy of your book?
We hope so.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a copy, you can do that very easily by going over to Amazon.com and searching Sobriety for Dummies, and it will come up right there for you.
It will. It's a very noticeable yellow. You can't miss it. The
Yellow and
Dummies
red.
books, yellow and red.
It's there for you. So our plan here is to be doing these episodes per chapter, per season, right? We're doing 6 seasons. We're going through the book.
Yeah.
Am I missing anything?
No, you're not. And so we're going to be touching on the first season is basically part 1 of the book, which is from chaos to clarity, stepping into sobriety, right? Because we want to explain what it is in case you're still wondering.
Yeah.
And we're going to touch on certain parts of the chapters so that you can go to those and focus more in depth on them.
So where should we begin? Explaining what alcoholism is? Because I feel like some people just maybe need a little lesson or
yeah, they
refresh.
do.
A refresh. How about that?
Yeah, refresh. So if you have the book, you can go to page 10, which is Understanding Sobriety and Alcoholism. And we talk about the difference between alcoholism and heavy drinkers because there is a difference.
Big. I think it's important to just kind of recognize that alcoholism it's in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, aka DSM. It's, professional. That's professional language. Right? It is a mental, and I talk about this all the time, Tamar.
Yes, you do.
I mean, this is the backbone on which I stand on because I think people miss or they don't want to associate their drinking with the mental disorder.
Yeah.
The hard fact is we're suffering from a mental illness.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So really check out, page 10 and go through understanding, the complexity of addiction and alcoholism.
Well, and I remember there was a time where after coming out of a blackout, I sat with a friend and she just asked, like, Tamar, why do you keep doing this to yourself? Right. And, when I had first come into recovery, I didn't fully understand because I thought I'm a classy drunk. Like, I have a full-time job. I'm married. Like, don't you know who I am kind of thing. I was very lucky. I was very fortunate because I never got caught. That's why I never went to jail. And that's why I didn't end up in treatment. Right. That was probably the biggest difference. But people wonder, well, what's the difference between a heavy drinker and alcoholism is that I can't stop. Once I start, it's like that allergy. I have to keep going.
Right.
And heavy drinkers can often stop because it might look very similar. But if the doctor said, you know what, Lane, you're going to die if you keep drinking. That is the fact. Your heart is this, that you would be able to stop going, okay, I don't want that.
Right.
That is the difference. Whereas an alcoholic would probably go home and drink right away.
100%. Yeah.
So if you're questioning that,
and just going back to the DSM, it's affecting you physically, mentally, and socially. So you're going to drink no matter what.
Yeah.
It just happens.
Yeah.
God, I can't help it. I mean, I couldn't help myself. I had to drink. And then, like I said in episode 000, I would clean up my act for a little bit, but then I would drink again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I would do $1,000 bet.
Oh my God.
With a fellow alcoholic friend. And we were like, we're going to stop for a month, 30 days. Whoever loses, right? Because we thought if we put the money high, I didn't have $1,000. If we do it high enough. And then as we're making this bet, she's like, yeah, but we have plans next weekend with those friends and we have a wedding so we actually planned our days that we would drink within this month of not drinking. And of course, the very first time we drank after that first week, we were off to the races again. It did not last for a full month. We just laughed and thought, let's just grab another bottle.
It's so wild.
It is wild. It's baffling.
It's baffling in that you know, we drink no matter what. And then if we're like, oh, I'm not going to drink, then it goes into, oh, I'm going to smoke cigarettes.
Yes.
Right. Or I'm going to do something else. So I want our listeners to understand that addiction, the mental illness that we're suffering from, kind of uh, bobbles and weaves through our lives with different addictions. Different things start to pop up,
Yeah.
different behavior.
And
Yeah.
can I share a quick story on the insanity of it all?
Yes, please.
In my previous career, I remember we had a golf tournament at one weekend, and I was sober at this time. And one of my close friends who I'd worked with for 6 years, she decided to tie one on. Never drinks. Like, this woman never drinks. And she got a little drunk that night. She blacked out. I didn't catch the end of the party. But on Monday,
No.
she walked up to my desk and she slammed her hands down. And she knew I was in recovery.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, she goes, "Are you insane?"
Uh-huh.
And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Who in their right mind would drink so much that they black out and then think it's a good idea to do it again the next day?"
Me.
I'm like, "Yeah, right here.
Right here,
Right here."
raising my hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just that. So yeah, that's the difference between a normal drinker and an alcoholic is, normal drinkers, they're going to say, no, I've had enough. They're going to slam down their hands and say, how can you do that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so crazy. So another really important element that we bring up in chapter 1 here is, the differences between sobriety and recovery, or sobriety versus recovery. There's a lot of people who are sober, right? Sober. And we kind of define this. Sobriety is defined as living without alcohol or drugs, encompassing both physical abstinence and a commitment to personal growth. Okay. It is not merely about quitting substances. It is about making a conscious and proactive choice to live a life devoid of substances that cause harm. Harm. Right. Embracing sobriety means prioritizing your health, both physically and mentally, and understanding that this journey is more than just refraining from using substances. It is about committing to a lifestyle that supports your well being and fosters positive and lasting changes in your life. So that's our definition. You could probably ask 100 people what their definition of sobriety is, and they're going to give you something else. Their definition could be, I just don't drink.
Yeah.
Right. Their definition could be, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Their definition could be, I go to Smart Recovery. We're kind of really embracing this idea around it. And then we go into what is recovery.
Yeah.
And recovery is this ongoing, effing, demanding, dedicated effort. There's effort.
Yeah.
Right?
There's work to do.
There's work to be done here in recovery. Because again, I'm going to go back to that mental illness, Tamar, that I talk about all the time. That mental illness, when it's not in check, sobriety is not enough, I feel. I don't want to bang it over the head, but it's really something to consider as you're going through the book here. Like, are you living sober or are you living in recovery? Oh, and I don't want to be the big blue meanie in all of this, but it's just something to really think about as you're approaching this life of, I call, recovery. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
And you're right, because it is.
There's a lot. There's a lot going on. I also want to just talk about May.
Yeah.
I think we should talk about May. May is a fellow in recovery, and we share a little bit of her story. Do you want to read that? Do you want me to read it?
Absolutely. So we're going to chapter 2 now.
Yeah.
I think, we hit a point where we have to recognize that change has to happen.
Mhm.
And I think this happens in different ways. And we're talking specifically sobriety. Like, when do you recognize that it's time to change, that your life is out of control? And so I came to that moment where I was like, I cannot live that way anymore. So if you head on over to page 24, recognizing the need for change, go ahead and read that. But there's a story, and I just want to highlight the first paragraph of May's story. See if you can relate. May sat quietly in the dim glow of the morning sun, her coffee cold and untouched.
Gross.
The sound of the city awakening were muffled by the thick glass of her apartment window. She felt it in the stillness, the undeniable truth that she had been skirting around for years. She had a problem with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, and that is such a, I remember that feeling, like it's so demoralizing. It's so like shameful, and it doesn't have to be.
How many times, though? How many times did you sit there and
Yeah,
think, I have a problem with alcohol? What am I going to
lots,
do?
lots.
And then at 5 o'clock or 3 o'clock, actually, for me, 3 o'clock, I was in my car going down to the store to get a box of wine.
Yeah, it's happy hour.
Right? Like, how many times did I sit or wake up or come to thinking, oh my God, I'm hungover, trying to drink my coffee, feeling like death's door,
Mm-hmm.
and having that thought of, I have a problem with alcohol. What am I going to do? And now in recovery, it's like, I have a problem with XYZ, right? Because the longer I'm sober, the more things that I go through, which I know I'm jumping forward in our book a little bit here, Tamar. Okay, I'm winding it back. But you know, the longer that I'm in recovery, it's like I have to recognize that there's going to be all kinds of things that I struggle with, and I have to get really honest. Like, what am I afraid of not feeling? What am I afraid of not investigating? What am I afraid of, like, uncovering? Because if I'm afraid of doing something, I'm going to drink again. And maybe not for me, again, the drinking is not drinking, a bottle of wine. It's, smoking a cigarette, eating that Snickers bar, yelling at the dog. Right. I just, my mental illness kind of is very twisty and turning and goes all over the place. And just, again, we talk about this earlier in the chapter about it wants to take us out.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
And in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if you've been living sober for any length of time, you know that even just overindulging in food, I
Yeah.
mean, that could lead to picking up a drink again because we are
100%.
doing things. And you said the word feelings.
Yeah.
I never wanted to deal with my feelings. Like, as soon
Mm-mm.
as I had any feelings, I was like, ick,
Right.
these are gross. Like, I cried more my first year I got sober than I have in my whole entire life because for 22 years I had suppressed all of those feelings
Mm-hmm.
using substances.
Brutal.
It was.
So let's wrap up right there. I think that's a good start.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to continue on. This is, just such a little taste. So if you haven't ordered the book, please go order the book. If you have a friend, go through it together. Anything else?
No, I'm
That's
excited
it.
for episode 2. We're going to be talking about developing the sobriety mindset.
All right. We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for hanging out with us.
See you next time.